Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Vimbai, Rufai, good morning to you. All our viewers out there, it's Friday. Amen. Let's begin. Oil prices. It's good to see this making the front page of this day newspaper, showing how things have become really dicey for oil-producing nations. So Brent, yesterday we're looking at about 61, inching up to 62. West Texas from 58, inching up to 59. And again, putting Nigeria's benchmark there at 75. So, and then natural gas coming down a bit. We just got earnings from Shell this morning. So we quickly captured those numbers before coming in. And it shows you the pressure points on oil majors when, crude is falling. So Shell's, they call it adjusted earnings, but that's basically their net profit, coming in at $5.5 billion, almost 30% lower than where we were a year ago. It was about $7.73 billion in Q1 2024. Again, this is the first 3 months of 2025 we're looking at. Shell's refining margin, which is what the profit they make when you convert crude oil to other, derivatives, whether it's PMS, diesel, or whatever, $6.20 per barrel, almost down 50% from where it was in Q1 2024. The average, what they were getting, their refining margins in 24 was about $12.20 per barrel. And then it's also very important to put this out. What was the average crude oil price in the first 3 months of 2025? It averaged out to just about $75 a barrel. But where was it in 2024, Q1? It was $87 a barrel. So this is impacting everyone. You think of the Saudi Aramcos, you think of oil-producing nations, Nigeria, Libya, Iran, Iraq, whoever. This is where we are. Then, of course, this is their 14th consecutive. That should be a 14, not a 4. 14th consecutive Q is 14th consecutive quarter of buybacks of their stock, about 3.5 billion. They've averaged about 3 billion in buying back their stock. And look, if you look at numbers from earlier, British Petroleum, I think at, was it who else? Total also had the same pressures. We're going to get Chevron later on, I think, in the day after the bell closes. But this just shows you the price pressures. I think you may have already touched on this. The front page, you can see the oil posting its steepest monthly fall since 2021. And then I thought this was pretty interesting. Dangote is saying okay with issues with not restrictions, but the tariffs, which have been paused for 90 days now. Dangote says okay with Trump's tariff on urea. To put that in perspective, if you look at the top U.S. urea imports, according to the World Bank's World Integrated Trade Solutions, Russia led the way, over 1 million metric tons, valued about $418 million in 2023. Now, you might ask yourself, what about the sanctions because of the war in Ukraine? There's no sanctions on urea. However, because of sanctions on banks and sanctions on certain other companies in Russia, that kind of has impacted their urea exports to the U.S. Qatar is in second place, Canada in third, Algeria, which Dangote pointed out. Then you've got Saudi Arabia, and then you've got Nigeria. So about 213 million for each of them. Nigeria about 157. I mean, the grand scheme of things, it's really not that much, but still, every export counts. So then he was speaking, I think, at a business forum quoted by Reuters, where he said, but when this was asking him if he was bothered about the tariffs on Nigeria non-oil exports to the US. But when I checked who we're really competing with, we're competing with Algeria. Luckily for us, Algeria was slapped with a 30% tariff, so it actually makes us a bit more comfortable. I mean, that has been paused for 90 days, which again puts exporters in limbo because you're wondering, okay, will these reciprocal tariffs come back, and what does that mean for exports? And this is the whole stop-start issues with the fiscal policy coming from the Trump administration. But in truth, I mean, it's not just Algeria, right? Dangote is competing with the Russia's, the India's, China's, and everybody else, Qatar's, that is exporting urea to the United States. It's Jobs Day in the U.S. You look at this spike in jobless claims. Now, don't worry about the bottom of the chart. Basically, your U.S. jobless claims go back one particular week. So 4 weeks into March, and then, the number of weeks, 4 weeks into April. You can see that they've averaged about 224,000, but they spiked in this most recent week. It could be the Doge cuts. And everyone is going to be looking at the April jobs numbers to see how the U.S. labor market is faring. So this was the Dow Jones poll. The EST is your April estimate. They're estimating 133,000 jobs created in the month of April. We'll get those numbers later today. For March, it was 228, February 117. Your average hourly earnings in the U.S. year-on-year by 3.8% for March, down from 4% in February. Your LPR is your labor participation rate, 62.5 is 62 is what we've been averaging for the past few months in the U.S. or even longer. And then unemployment, the estimates are about 4.2. So we'll get those numbers later on today. We'll see how the U.S. labor market is faring.
Okay, Rotus, enough feathers. I know, compared to other countries as regards Urea, Russia, and all of that, but I think it's a big success story. And you know why I say that? That we're even doing Urea that we didn't used to do before.
Of course.
Because I was on the panel when the head of Indorama was there about 2 years ago at the Africa CEOs Forum. He was on my panel. And he told the Urea story of the turnaround. Yeah. So you having guys like the likes of Indoramas of this world, the Dangotes of this world, and we at least are eking out some numbers in Urea that we used to, majorly import at some point. That's one of the success stories. We'll see the Doge cuts. I think now Elon Musk is already having his own squabbles with his own team at Tesla. There was a story that came out, anyway, they've been debunking it, that says, they're not looking for any CEO at any point in time now. Let's see how that Doge cut affects. So this further cements the fact that he has ruined jobs. There was an ascendancy during Joe Biden. He's ruined stock markets. Tariff has also taken a big hit. I was just seeing a story on CNBC this morning that they are still trying to tease at China.
So he was saying that China wants to talk to the US.
And China lies a lot. Rotus, what are you saying? You know a liar already now. Yeah. Trump is a liar. Right. The man lies a lot. So now they are trying to tease, at China. Tell him to also bring out the 70 countries that have been trying to talk to him on the tariff thing.
Right. Okay. So on Dangote and the Urea topic, I love the mindset because I think it's what we've been advocating, which is that, yes, this is what the world has been served. However, how can we take advantage of a possible competitive advantage that this can bring to countries like Nigeria, whose tariffs are significantly lower than a lot of other African countries? Right. This is how South Africa's automotive industry was actually built. The fact that you had your Mercedes, your BMW, Ford, they all came to manufacture in South Africa because South Africa exported to the US under AGOA. Sorry, sad to say that's gone. But, this is the kind of ecosystem that has the potential to be built in this window that we have. Now, very quickly on the front page of this day, there was also a story about SEC. So SEC is sounding the alarm about a new Securities Exchange Commission, thank you, about a new investment platform called Tufro or Tofro or whatever they're calling it. And they're telling people, don't fall for it. It's a Ponzi scheme. You'll get burnt. So I hope the people are hearing the message loud and clear. This time around, we won't come and say SEC didn't do anything. Right. They're telling us now, if you put your money inside Tufro, it's between you and God. Because as a regulator, but I hope they can go take a step further, get EFCC in, and shut it down.
But Vimbai, the thing is this, anyway, there's so many Ponzi schemes that pop up.
Because of time.
Yeah.
Please, let's be sensitive to the timing of the program. Now, very quickly, on the issue of urea, and Alhaji Aliko Dangote saying he's comfortable with it. Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF boss, had already said, look, the big issue for African countries is about how they manage the situation because they are not directly impacted by Trump tariffs and that the impact will be very minimal. But that these African countries have to look at fiscal, space in their countries. They have to look at, social spend and all of that. And that is where the issue is. And that brings me to your point about the fact that there is a fall in oil prices. Now, why is that? Demand is reducing. In a country like Nigeria, production is not going up. Correct. 2, there are headwinds within the international market. Iran and the US talking, Saudi Arabia and other OPEC members saying that they're going to look at supply, which is something they will do this May. Yes. That now means that oil prices will fall. Right. The Brent crude is down to below 60, 65. The WTI is about 56, 58. That's right. Now, and we have our benchmark at 75 for the 2025 budget. So that has implications. In terms of revenue for Nigeria, I think that is the big story there. Where the other stories that I have seen is that the de minimis effect is now in place, effective May 2. The U.S. in February said, oh, all these small retailers, Shein and Temu, bringing big packages to the U.S., there was an executive order. Trump now extended it to May 2. Now that is now having implications in terms of retail trade. Many of the Chinese companies, they say, well, they are looking at other markets. Investors are also looking at emerging markets. So the Trump effect is still there in terms of international trade. And now there is an implication that even people in Nigeria, you have to worry about what you order through the U.S. Because I know many Nigerian consumers, they order through the United States and they bring to Nigeria. So these are the
turbulent times.
These are the turbulent issues. And by the way, yesterday you mentioned Elon Musk.
Yes.
They say they are not sacking him at Tesla. He's still the CEO. And in fact, they passed a vote of confidence in him. And he says the Wall Street Journal that wrote this story. It's a trash newspaper. I don't agree with him.
I don't agree either.
But it's very convenient to blame journalists all the time. We get abused all the time, even by people who are most ignorant about how the work is done.